It says we're live. Okay, so hopefully, hi everyone. Sorry for that awkward start. That's my fault being not tech savvy, even though I've done this like a gazillion times. This is our first, thank you, James Hurst, for being here.
Of course.
I've posted James' bio, but for those who don't know, James is a very beloved Canadian showrunner, TV writer, producer. He's worked on probably everything that's been good in Canada, almost everything.
Oh, you.
Well, especially in the young adult space, in the early adult space. So, DeGrassi, The Next Generation, Instant Star, Wynonna Earp, Frankie Drake, Hardy Boys, so many. I can't even, like, if I start to name them, it'll take half this interview. So we will start. It says we've got 6 people tuned in. If anyone can't hear us, can you let me know in the chat? There we go. Are we supposed to bring being Erica questions? That's funny. I'm gonna, oh, hi. Okay, this is great. I was live. It says we're still live, so that's great. Let me know if there's technical issues in the chat. We're on Zoom. You guys are in Facebook, so it's gonna feel a bit awkward for a second, and because there's a delay. So James, is there anything else you want to say before I start asking you questions?
Thank you for having me here.
Oh.
And I was reflecting, we've known each other for a while.
25 years at least.
25 years, which is strange because we both just turned 30. So I don't know. I guess we were toddlers, I guess.
We were toddlers. I wouldn't be surprised if we had met when we were toddlers. Were you always in Toronto?
No, I'm from Montreal originally.
Right, that's right. And I know that even.
I've lived here for about 18 years. But all I want to say is thank you for having me, and thank you. You've been such a great a supporter and nurturer of young emerging talent, and especially writers. And so on behalf of everybody, I thank you and appreciate everything you're doing. And so I'm delighted to be here. And if I can be of any help, I'm more than happy to answer any questions or whatever works.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you. Oh, no, that's awesome. I've known you so long. I found it hard to write questions for you. Like I was like, we should just have a conversation. Sometimes when James and I sit down to have a conversation, 5 hours later, we look at our watch and we're like, oh, we've been here for 5 hours.
That's right. Absolutely.
So, okay. I was trying to think back because we knew each other in film school. James's hair is a throwback to film school right now.
This is COVID. This is what COVID looks like. This is a year without a haircut is what it looks like. It's getting kind of Jesus-ish.
Which is funny because you're half Jewish, so.
I know. So, if I was, because Jesus was fully Jewish.
Yeah.
I feel like this is maybe dicey territory.
I know.
This is maybe a little dicey.
I'm a lapsed Catholic. I always have been. So back in film school, I think I remember that you always wanted to write. Is that did you always see yourself where you are now as a showrunner, as a TV writer with a long career?
I thought you were going to say with long hair. Did I? No, I didn't. I studied production, but my idol at the time was Woody Allen. He's turned out to be a terrible person, but I was really the idea of being a writer director. So certainly writing was always in the mix, but I thought I wanted to make films. I mean, I'd still like to, but it was sort of split focus, writing and directing. But through the course of being at York and writing essays and things like that, I seemed to get a lot more praise and gratification out of the writing end of it. So it sort of found me, I suppose you could say.
I remember your film was good. I think you were a decent director back then.
Thank you. It was York. Why am I even mentioning this? I was going to say it's a humble brag, and at this point it's not even. This is like such a anyways, I was going to say that York liked it and they selected it and submitted it for the student Oscars, which is a thing.
It is a thing.
Which is a thing. And I have a nice certificate somewhere. I did not win, naturally, but I do have a lovely certificate somewhere from, and it says AMPUS and the whole thing. It's got a real gold embossed Oscar on it. So that was very exciting. And I think because, but it was, I think I did a good job directing it, but I think it was more the script is what elevated it.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I don't want to say it was elevated. It really wasn't very elevated. It was a student film. People say, "Can I see your student film?" I say, "No, no, you cannot."
I say no to that too.
You.
But yes, I know. No, I was thinking back to the time when we all had big dreams. Because I didn't have a dream of anything. Like I didn't know what I wanted to be. So I was trying to think back about. So
that's not true. That's not true.
What did I
that
say?
That is not true. That's not true.
Really?
Well, okay, I don't know about dream, but you were always very, very ambitious and and I mean that in a good way, and very driven and very focused, and you knew what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And that was my recollection.
Wow.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I mean, I guess people have different ideas about themselves, but I would say very focused. You've always been very focused.
Oh.
But that's just me. You know better. You're you.
I just don't remember. It's been 30 years. Like for me in the film business, like 30 years, too long. Okay. So what I learned, so I just did this thing last week in LA, and we met with all these senior writers and showrunners and stuff, and they all had a completely different path. You're probably sick of this question, but do you want to tell people your path that got you where you are today?
And where do I start the path?
Wherever you want. You can deny stuff. Totally fine.
Well, as you mentioned, Daniela, I graduated from York, and I did have a production degree, but I was more focused on writing. And I spent a few years writing not very good screenplays and starving. And I did not own a TV at that time. I was quite broke, and so I was very against TV. So, which is ironic, right? And of course, I always loved movies, as you know, and I did eventually get a TV, and I, would watch on VHS. I'd watch movies, but I did not have any. I was pretty snobby about TV. So, but I was practical. And I heard about a job called story department coordinator or script coordinator, and where you could work in a story department. And at that point, I thought a story department. I thought maybe that they just did the stories, right? I was dumb. And this is so long ago too. The amount of information. This is pre-internet, so you couldn't Google it, right? So I thought maybe they focused on the stories. It's pretty dumb. So, and I was always told that my plot and my stories were good. I was always told that was a strength. So I was like, oh yeah, I'd be good at that. And then, I didn't know that was just the writing department. Story and scripts is just the writing department, as you know. So I lucked into a job. I lied on the job it was for a show called Crass Creatures, which was the precursor to Zaboomafoo, which some of you out there will remember. Crab Brothers that chase around animals. Anyways, I worked on the first show. It was my first job. I lied my way into the job. I said I knew how to do, it was a program called Scriptware, which is defunct. And I said, oh yeah, I know how to do Scriptware. No idea. And, but I really wanted that job. I don't think I've ever wanted anything as much as I wanted that job, because I knew it would be so important to get a leg up, just to get in the door. And it was, and it was a 50 episode run. It was a long show. It took about 18 months, which is, it's very long for a TV show.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? But it was very complex. There was animation, studio, wildlife. So that's why, and 50 episodes. And by the end of it, I was effectively the head writer by the end of it, largely through attrition and other. It was a crazy show. But sometimes when there's a real crisis or a real crazy situation, there's opportunity. And so there was opportunity on that show to move up. So by the end of that show, I was a head writer. We did not call it showrunner then. That's a relatively new term. And then from there, continued to work in a number of what they called unscripted, although they were written, documentaries, things of that nature, right? And I was desperate to get into script, and I thought, I'm 26 and I oh my God, what's the end of the world? I haven't written on a scripted show. I'm so old. What will happen to me? And So I really focused very, very hard, and it felt like insurmountable. In retrospect, I mean, it really wasn't that big a deal, but it seemed like, oh, there's no way I'll get into scripted. It seemed like if you're over here, you're writing Zaboomafoo, or I'd write shows like a magic documentary. I wrote a whole bunch of stuff, and it was all writers guild, all well-paying jobs. I mean, it was perfectly respectable. But the feeling was is drama or comedy is that's where the, rather, it was like a gentleman's club I could never get into. And it took years of just banging on doors, and eventually I it's a long story, but basically by hook or by crook I got onto DeGrassi right at the beginning, first season. And
Wow.
and then they actually brought me in on a daily, and who cares, it's just that they brought me in just to help punch up and fix stuff. And I was, pretty young at the time, so it seemed like, oh, he'll be able to write the kids, the youth. But then I never left, which was great. I was there for 6 years, and it was a great experience. The show was quite big. It got very, very big, had big cultural impact, which was really gratifying at the time. I wish I could have enjoyed it more at the time because I was pretty stressed out. I did rise up. I did become rise up. Sounds weird. I did rise to become showrunner. The original showrunner, Aaron Martin, is a friend. He left at season 5. He'd run it for 4 years, and I'd been his number 2. I was kind of right beside him. And so it was a natural transition for me to take over in season 5. And season 5 was easily the best season. And then I did season 5 and season 6, and then at that point I was ready to move on and do other things, although I continued to write for the show, so I'd still come back and write as a guest writer. And then from there, because DeGrassi was such a big show, I was fortunate. I was able to kind of cross over to 1 hour, because to go from kids, again, it felt like this huge, leap that I could never do. But because DeGrassi had been so popular and successful, I was able to get on to being Erica. Also helped that Aaron Martin, who was the showrunner and my old boss, brought me on right away for being Erica. Yeah. And I also knew Jana as well. Jana Senior, the creator, had written for DeGrassi, written 1 episode. And so I knew her as well. So it was a very seamless fit. And I went, I think, really straight from DeGrassi to being Erica, pretty much. And that was a great experience as well, because that was a show that was, sorry, have I answered the question? Should I continue?
I know you've got like another 20 years of career after that, but this is great.
Oh, okay. Well, that's why I don't want to drag. I don't want to be too slow. I basically got into being Erica, and then from there, I've just done a number of 1 hours. Flashpoint, The Listener, a few others. Names are escaping me, but I've worked a lot with procedurals and mysteries, although that's not necessarily my favorite. I think I'm pretty good at it. And my real passion is genre. I love genre. And so Wynonna Earp was a great experience to be able to finally write something in the genre space. And I've been trying to get back to it. There's not a lot of opportunities for genre, as you know, although
in Canada.
In Canada, yes, in Canada, at least not for me anyway. But so yeah, I'm really trying to get back to it. But my most recent experience was Hardy Boys, which is a 1 hour teen mystery, highly serialized for Hulu, which I did kind of pre-COVID. And so that's my career track. And that's I'm not always a showrunner. I mean, that's something I should mention. Yeah. I mean, I'm sometimes a show, you're not always going to get that job. Mm-hmm. And I'm perfectly happy. I love showrunning. I love it. Love it. And I can't wait to do it again, but it is hard to come by that job. And I'm also, because I've done it, I like actually being, let's say, the number 2 or the number 3, because I have an idea about what might be helpful.
That's great.
So that's basically my career track, and what I've been doing. Obviously things have been slow with COVID. I did a little bit of work, story editing work on Hudson and Rex. Yeah, that was pretty much my reaction as well. And no disrespect. Thank you for the check. I don't think I'm getting hired back there. Yeah. So, and I've been focused on writing some originals.
Good. Oh,
which
good.
is yeah, which I love. I'm writing one that I love, and it's my dream. It's the thing I've always wanted to write. So it's
Oh.
fantastic to have this opportunity to
Is it a
write
1
it.
hour? Yeah, it's a 1
It's a
hour, right?
1 hour.
Yeah.
Hopefully will be coming to screens. I hope. I love it. I love it so much. And probably without COVID, I wouldn't have had a chance to write it, right? Because that you get on the treadmill and you don't ever want to get off the treadmill. By the treadmill, I mean, you're on a show, you're working, you know what I mean, Daniela, but for the
Yeah.
for the kids, for the youth, it's much what it feels like. You're on a treadmill and you go from show to show to show to show. And there's a feeling that if you get off the treadmill, you'll never get on again. So you don't always have time. Some people will be running a show and write an original at the same time. I don't know how.
Yeah, I don't know how they do that either. That's
They're
crazy.
machines. They're machines. I don't get it. So
Um,
that's anyway. So I hope that wasn't too long.
no. People need to hear this. I mean, we will all have different paths, but yeah, I had forgotten your path too. I remembered how hard you were working on Zumba Famu and Incredible Story Studio. Like I remember those years.
Yes,
You were
yes.
always working so hard. And
Yeah.
so was I on American shows.
Oh my God.
Yeah, just on
Yeah.
set. So we had very different paths. I'm a brand new writer at 51, so this is really like bizarre to me that we get to talk like this and reflect on all this. Oh, and we didn't say your wife is also an incredibly well-known Canadian writer. I just wanted to say that.
Yes. Her name's Shelley Scarrow. She's great. Highly recommend her work. She's a better writer than I am for sure. And she's on a show called Wynonna Earp. And I think not last night, but last week was an episode she wrote that she was very proud of and very pleased with. So yeah, and she's very active on social media, so she's easy to find. Chocolatey Shell.
I love her Twitter. I love her tweets.
Oh, good. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. Yes, I forget. I always forget my passwords, so I'm.
Do you know how many American showrunners have said to me, "Oh, you want to be a comedy writer? You got to get on Twitter and write jokes every day." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, see that to me is and yes.
Yeah.
That seems like so you have to do all the work without the what.
Yeah.
It's not about the money. It's not about the money.
I know.
But it's just I don't know, it's weird. But yeah, I'm not a comedy writer, so I don't have that. I guess I could on Twitter, pitch plots. I'm like, here's a subplot.
This one that you love, you don't have to tell us what it is if you don't want to, but is it from your life? Like why is it, what makes this one different for you?
It's about aliens living on Earth. So it's not from my life, or is it? It's very passionate. No, it's not from my life. The next one I write really, and I see I'm saying it like it's like eating vegetables. The next one I write really should be one for my life. I do have something planned that because yes, as you know, and as your students know, and it can't be stressed enough that the way to get notice, the way, especially now, is with authentic. People want to hear your story, and it's incredibly important to do that when you're working in the genre space. It can be a little bit more challenging, because Kubrick. I'm not comparing myself to Kubrick, by the way, but because that would be ridiculous. I just the name popped in my head. He didn't go to space, so how do you write something that's in the genre space about aliens? It is very personal. Why this is for me, because the experience of these aliens is something that I feel is something I can relate to, and it's the themes of the piece are themes that are been in me since birth. Their theme that this is what I have. This is I feel, and I'm not saying it's great. I'm just saying that it's a topic, and I'm able to write about things that mean so much to me. That but also hopefully entertaining. I would hope. Or maybe people just think I'm crazy. I don't know, but it's something I've been thinking about for years and dreaming about for years and years and years and years. But and I love personal stories. I love, I love small independent movies. I love that kind of stuff. But I also love Tenet. I absolutely adore Tenet. I saw it seen it maybe 5 times.
Oh my God, really? I think my head would explode. I'm afraid to watch.
I know. Yeah, I know. It's funny. That movie is so, it's with all due respect, it's very pretentious, but I love it. I just love it. I absolutely adore it. So I guess, you know what the truth is that, so we talked before about my path. Grade 3, Star Wars came out, the original Star Wars, because I'm old as fuck.
I was in grade 4. I was in grade 4. I skipped a grade. Yeah.
We see it because you were very gifted. I was not gifted. So Star Wars came out, and it went off like an atom bomb in my life. Like, obviously a lot of people, it went off like an atom bomb, but like grade 3 was just absolutely perfect. I would not consider myself a Star Wars, like I'm not a Star Wars geek or anything like that. Like but that movie, which I still love, is what turned me on to movies. And it's not just the fantasy element, it's the themes. It's obviously Star Wars has a lot to say about faith and really big themes that move me. And that's why I love genre. I love that space, because you can write about big themes, but on still on a visceral gut level, so that it doesn't get too egg-headed.
Egg-headed, good word. That's another word. Oh, great. Damn it. As you were talking, I had lost the question that I wanted to ask you next.
Oh, no worries.
Let me go back to in your path when you were, because we have a lot of people here who are on the verge of getting representation, like right. Agents and managers, which in Canada is the same thing. Do you remember, did you have an agent when you got DeGrassi?
I did. Yes, I had an agent. Yeah, I did. I'm with a different agent now, but
yeah, you've probably been through
it. Yeah, that is one thing. If you've been around for a while, as I have, you have a few. I've actually been very lucky. I've had a number of really good agents, but that agent actually left the business. So, yeah. Is this weird? I don't mean to name drop, but her name was Sally Catto, and she's the head of CBC. Yeah, yes. She started as an agent, and she was my first agent, and so yeah, she was representing me. It may be shortly before DeGrassi. She was with Harrison Artists, but I was with her, and then she left, and of course is now runs CBC, or head of drama, whatever her title is there. But she was my first agent, so yeah.
Oh, that's great. But when you were doing the other shows, you just applied and got story coordinator, and then at a certain point you got an agent, right?
That is correct. Yes, yes. I worked without an agent for a while, for the first few years. I did. Yeah, I was getting the work myself, but I highly recommend getting representation as very, very, very important, because they'll help protect you, especially for emerging writers. As you know, there's some sharks out there. So that representation is no guarantee that you won't get taken advantage of, but they've read so many contracts and need an agent or manager. So I think I've been very happy with virtually all of my agents.
We will go into that.
And my agent right now, Alana Miller, is fantastic. She's with Jenny Collier. She's amazing. And I met her on DeGrassi, funny enough.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She used to be in production, and then decided that she didn't want to be, and loved working with writers. So that's what she does now. And she's fantastic. And I love her. And I've been with her for a number of years, and have just nothing but great things to say. And that's, having an agent is an ally. And it's the thing, as you know, that I find takes a little while to get used to, is that jobs go so ridiculously fast, that which is why there's so much, it seems like there's so much nepotism, because you often don't hear about a job unless someone's right there and they pick up the phone. Right. So in that case, it is who you know, but agents can really help you, because they'll know. And otherwise, the idea of putting out a resume like you would in the normal world, putting out a resume and saying, are there any positions, that often doesn't bear fruit. It can, especially for store department coordinators, it can, but often, an agent will really help you, just because things move with the blink of an eye.
Okay, so because there's so much I know this is like, you probably get these same boring questions all the time. There's so much controversy. Do we write a spec script or not? Because in the States, there's
Right.
all different answers. As a showrunner, so put on your showrunner hat. When you read writers, what do you like to read from them?
I'd be really curious to hear you. You've just been in LA, so I would love to hear what your recent experience and what people are saying on the ground right now.
Sure.
When I was there, I haven't been for a while, for a few years. It was all originals all the time. Original. Make it original. And but then I've also known, I have colleagues who have one colleague who is also a playwright, but pays the bills with TV writing. That's really been his focus for many, many years, but also writes plays. And he kind of broke in LA with a play. So there's no one size all in it approach, but certainly originals is where it's at. I personally, I don't mind a spec, but I haven't read one. I haven't seen one. By spec, we mean a sample, right? Like a sample episode of Murdoch Mysteries or whatever. I think, but I want to qualify this.
Mhm.
This is my hot take, and it is not what anyone else thinks. So really, so kids, don't, when I say this, I'm not telling you to do this, write an original. But I personally, to answer the question as a showrunner, I personally think originals are great, but I think sometimes a sample of an existing show is good. And I'll tell you for why. Because when you're coming onto a show, an established show that knows itself, has its own voice, you want someone who can mimic that voice, do you not? Right? I
Yeah,
mean,
well, I
doesn't
love
that
to
make,
write.
isn't that just like,
Yes.
and right? I mean, so this is the thing. And now I say that as someone who I'm an amateur mimic. I do a few impersonations, which I will not do right now, but I amuse myself and torture others with silly De Niro impersonation, like, so I like mimicry anyway. But for me, I think that's a big, it's a big plus if you can come
Yeah.
in and you hear the voices, the musicality of it, and imitate it and spit it back, because that way the showrunner or the senior writers of the room is maybe not going to be rewriting every single word, and because that is what happens, is you're
Oh,
very
yeah.
lucky as a new writer if anything gets on the floor. And I think that's something a lot of people are very surprised by, is that sometimes the written by,
Right.
it's like, what? I
Written by
guess that person
everybody,
wrote that, like,
or just the
yeah,
owner. Yeah,
the
yeah.
room wrote it, or the
Yeah.
showrunner rewrote it extensively, or it was given to someone. If it was written by the showrunner or a very, 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 very senior writer on staff, then maybe that means something. But that is all to say that mimicry, I think, is a real skill. So a sample script is mimicry. So that's why I think someone, you get an original, and it's fantastic. I've read some fantastic ones and hired people off them. So again, don't get me wrong, I'm just being the curmudgeon troll here. I'm really just trolling, but it's just it's a kind of a pet peeve of mine that I've put to rest, because it's how the industry works. But and the original that I'm thinking of actually was terrific, and the writer I hired was terrific, so it all worked out. But you might spend a year writing an original. When
Yeah.
you're on staff writing a script, it might be 3 days, it might be a
Yeah.
week. So you can while away in your garret writing a wonderful, wonderful original. That's but what's going to happen on the day when, like, oh my God, we've lost this location, we have to rewrite 20 pages now? Can you deliver then? And
I've seen
so
writers rewrite on set. I've seen writers, because of what
sure,
happened in production.
yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So having said that, that's a skill you pick up, of course. You just get better, and there's no way to get better than that kind of pressure. It would be like stand-up. It's which, I don't, I know
You
this
did it
much
a
about
bit.
it,
You did it a bit.
but a little bit. um yeah, like there's no when you're rewriting on set and everyone's staring at you and you're in a crisis, you're not going to learn any better. It would be like on stage, it's that kind of pressure, but pressure creates diamonds.
Wasn't the name of your student film Diamonds and Gold? I just had a flashback.
Yes, it was.
We'll secretly post it in the. I'm just
no,
kidding.
we will not.
Do we know? But I don't think they know that your classmate was Sutherland.
Oh, absolutely. He's a good friend of mine. Yeah, Sutherland's awesome. I love Suds. I knew Suds when he was Suds, and then for a while he was David.
Yes.
And I had to reach out to, okay, it's David. That was for years, and then became Suds again. So I'm like an old person when I see him, like David, Suds, David. But he's wonderful, yeah. And we collaborated. We were partners. We made a few really terrible films. The worst. One was on subway suicides, because there's a topic that isn't totally cliche.
Did not. I didn't.
Oh, we did. And I wanted to call it The Third Rail, of course. But instead we called it, now I've forgotten, but it was code. I want to say code 52, but because we had heard that code 52 was the code they give for suicides. And by the way, I don't mean to be laughing at suicides. It's a terrible thing.
No.
And I'm sorry if I'm triggering anyone. I'm so sorry. It's a very serious thing. But the reason we're laughing is because it's like a film school cliche. And I'm sure you kids you're young. You film in graveyards. Everybody smokes. These are just themes that young people lean on a lot. So that's the only reason we're laughing about such a terrible thing. But that was me and Suds. Yeah, we did terrible work. But I've never had so much fun in my life. And we just laughed and formed a bond. And I very recently worked with him on Frankie Drake. I was running season 2 of Frankie Drake, and he came in to direct 2 episodes. And it was the highlight of my experience there. It was so delightful to work with. He's such a joy to work with. He's so prepared. Right. He's so prepared. No one is prepared like this guy. It's unbelievable. And he's got, he wants to have these zones of detail. He's such an eye. Just incredible. Very, very gratifying to know someone as you as well, to have friends and associates that you've known that long. And can be very, very helpful too, of course, because you can help each other out. And
he knows that you made a film about subway suicide, so there's never any pretension between you guys on set.
Well, right? Exactly. Yeah. We can never take ourselves seriously when we made the worst movie. Oh my God.
I noticed that some of the students are making comments about the CFC program. Do you want to talk at all about that?
Well, I can't say much because I didn't get in. So I didn't get in, but I know, of course, lots and lots of people who have been through, and lots. Aaron Martin, Tassie Cameron, oh my God, so Adam Barkin. So many of my colleagues have been through and just loved it. I've also had some colleagues that have
great rep.
Yeah, I know some colleagues of mine who have taught there, like done writing workshops, or I forget what they call it, but I guess prime time, where you do a show. I'd love to do that sometime, actually. Great.
Oh my God, you should run a writer's room. That's amazing.
I'd love to. Yeah. Well, I guess I better get off my butt and apply. I haven't applied. The times I see the applications and I'm usually busy at that time, but my time will come. I'll do it. So I've known so many people who just love it. They're so passionate about it. It's such a community. So one in which I was not invited to.
It's funny. I've mentored the film students. I do mentor the film students, but I've never. And actually, a couple of years ago, I started working with the writers on the teaser trailers from a script supervisor's perspective. And I love the energy of the people who come in every year. But I have known some really successful people who never got in. So I just wanted you to say that you never got in, just so that people wouldn't be put off if they don't get in, because it's not.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and thank you for saying I'm very successful. And I've been told subsequently that you're meant to apply several times. And a very esteemed colleague told me very recently. It was like, oh no, the whole point is you have to apply a couple times. And I would have, I was lucky enough to get a job. It worked out well actually, because I didn't get in, and then I got a job on a show called Incredible Story Studio, which was a big show for me, as you remember, because it was the first show I worked on that was scripted. It was a kid's show, but it was scripted, so that felt like a huge leap forward. And it was, because from there I was able to kind of maneuver my way into DeGrassi. So in the end, it wound up working well for me.
Yeah. I think everything goes as it's supposed to go eventually. Like with all our years, like you get that hindsight and go, what was I anxious about? What was I worried about? Things fall where the chips fall where they're supposed to land.
Yeah.
As long as you don't stop doing the work, that's all that I think that matters.
Yeah.
Do you have any LA stories for us that you want to share? Like, you stayed in Canada this whole time, which is amazing. Like it's like even Sarah Polly is like that. She's like, I'm staying in Canada. This is what is that like, I just let's talk about that, because a lot of people leave.
Yeah, I like to see myself as the Sarah Polly of Canadian screenwriting. I'm often compared to her. Wouldn't that be great? I mean, she's had an amazing career. It's kind of accidental, really. That I did pursue it a number of years ago, but I didn't do what you probably should do, what I think you should do, which is really throw in and really go all in. I was working with another writer at the time. We were partners for a while, and he's a great guy. Andrew Piper is his name. He's a novelist, and we had a great partnership. And he and I just both love genre. And particularly, his kind of genre. He's a novelist, and he writes sort of more, I guess, elevated sounds pretentious, but lit horror, I guess. So he and I were going down quite a bit with the project. We got a little bit of traction with a company, and we're moving ahead, but it did die, as happens quite often. And but because we were doing it from here, so we went down, we pitched, we'd have meetings, go back, more meetings, and then doing a bit of what would have been a primitive Zoom at the time. And I think it was all good, and they said, come back with the next one. But then it's like, well, do we book another plane? It just started to become unfeasible. And frankly, I had young kids, so it just didn't. The timing really wasn't right, for me. But I still, I'm a bit long in the tooth for LA, but
that makes me long in the well, your experience, so that's the difference.
You don't look long in the tooth.
I have long teeth. I'm like, we're either the same age or I'm older than you. I can't remember, because I did skip that grade, so I never know. But yeah,
that's right. That's a bit of a flex right there. You were a very gifted student. So why didn't I? I would still like to, and I have quite a number of colleagues. A lot of my colleagues have gone. So why haven't I? I don't like guns. I do like free healthcare, and I don't like traffic. So those are really big things. Although I do like the beach.
Yeah, right.
And what I did, and I'm sure you've just been having this experience, and what I loved about spending time down there is just, it's great when you have a meeting, and maybe the meeting doesn't lead to anything concrete, but pitching on the Warner's lot or something, and you pass by. I'm a big Looney Tunes fan, so I remember walking past Chuck Jones's office, and he was the main animator for Looney Tunes, and so that's Chuck Jones' office, and it's no big deal, because they're on the lot. That's where it is. So just being near, you're kind of near the candy factory, you're right there, and so there is a great excitement that comes with that. And that American attitude of yeah, let's try it. Yeah, maybe, yeah, like let's go. Whereas here, there's a very different attitude. People a bit more like Eeyore. I guess we could try. I guess. I mean, what if people don't like it? So there can be some of that, and I hope I'm not pissing anybody off. I'm joking. It's obviously not that it's not that simple. So yeah, I hope I mean, the piece I'm writing right now would be more suited to the American market, but the way I'm seeing it, the way it seems to me is, with streamers, is that I would love to be able to shoot it here. I mean, Wynonna Earp, which unfortunately did recently get canceled by Sci-Fi, but they are looking for other people to fill in. I mean, that's sort of a US based. It's filmed in Canada and it's very Canadian, but it is the main platform with Sci-Fi, and I would see. I think it deals with things that are very relevant to America. But that's shot here and written here, so I would love to follow that model. I'd love to shoot. I'd love to do a show here. And I think, because I did DeGrassi, and that did have a lot of impact in the States, that maybe spoiled me,
Yeah, like you're a known commodity in the United States and you've stayed here the whole time. You know what was interesting, James? I kept asking all the managers that I met this week, I kept asking them, and also like some of the mentors, do I need to move to LA? I mean, I could move to LA. I have nothing really tying me down here, but they all said nobody knows what's happening anymore because rooms have been virtual. So it's getting to the point where they said, for all we know, you could live anywhere. They all had a number of clients in other countries. So you don't have to be an American citizen. They said, if you're in a TV writer's room here, obviously you have to live here. But even that is changing because all their clients were in virtual rooms. So who knows? You could still, I mean, you can obviously still pitch this all over the US and be right here, shoot it here and all of that and
have
run a room of internationals, right? If you wanted to.
That would be great. That'd be great. Yeah, that would be the dream. I mean, if you could do something that has global reach from home, that would be fantastic. But I do have a number of colleagues, of course, that are down there and love it. So, and some close friends too. So, yeah, I'm not opposed to it. It didn't quite. Yeah, it didn't quite work out.
No, fair. I just love to hear, because sometimes people are like, I love Canada, I didn't want to leave. I mean, the fact is you had and continue to have a great career that was sustainable. You're able to raise your family, have a great home. So it is possible to stay in Canada and have a career as a writer. There's just fewer opportunities, I guess is the word, right?
It does feel like that right now. It does feel like we're in decline, and have been for a while. So I do tell the youngins I'm a little nervous about the state of the industry, and I'm sorry for bumming people out, but it does feel we're not making enough, in my opinion. We're not making enough shows, and I'll tell you why. Is that it's not just the more shows you make, is that you're building up a community. And for something like DeGrassi, that was a lot of episodes, and I like to think of it like the system they have. DeGrassi did something like the system they have in England, where they have all those soaps, and so many writers come up through the soaps, and you learn your chops. And there's no better way. It's like we were talking, comparing it to stand-up. There's no better way to learn than something doesn't work publicly. Now, of course, it never happened to me. But there's nothing better. I mean, there's no better experience than that. So, you want to have a lot of stuff being made because you're building up a talent base, you're building up writers, you're building up people with experience. And because you don't know, it's a funny thing, and this, and we all know this intellectually, is that, but sometimes people will say, why did this bad show get made? And you say, they didn't. It's just as hard to make a bad show than a good show. They didn't try to make a bad movie. They thought they were doing a good job. No one goes to work unless they're making the room. No one goes to work and says, let's do a bad job today. They're trying to do something good. And when you're on something good, it's true, right? When you're on something that's elevated and it's you can tell. But the thing is, you don't know how to pick them. So you need a lot of stuff going, and I think as the pie continues to shrink, I feel for the emerging writers. I worry that they're not going to get enough experience, but that might be doom and gloom, and that could be well wrong. And I hope I am.
Listen, like these people in LA were saying that anything can happen tomorrow if rooms stay virtual. and people can work from anywhere in the world,
Yeah.
that opens up the market. Like they were non-committal either way. They were like, we honestly
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know
I
what is
get that
going to happen.
impression, right? Is
Yeah.
that we just don't know. We're in such a state of flux. I think for me too, part of what kept me here was that I had a feeling that because a number of the shows I was working on had a U.S. Broadcaster, in fact, a lot of them did,
Yeah.
that it felt like I thought anyways, that I was getting the best of both worlds. Like, for example, Flashpoint, which I worked on, was on CBS. And so that, it's not that I was on the calls. I did get to hear from the CBS executives. But obviously it's not the same as being there. There's no substitute for being there. And it's a whole culture that's going on. But I think in my case, because I was so many of the shows I was working on were co-productions, it felt to me like I was sort of covered, but I don't know that that's really true. And you never know what's going to resonate with people. The credit that usually gets me the most notices or respect or recognition is being Erica, funny enough, and which is great. But I wouldn't have thought, of all the shows I did, I wouldn't think that would be the one that people go. I mean, in LA, people go, "Oh, being Erica." In LA, yeah, people are like, "Oh, being Erica, you did being Erica. Wow, wow." Yeah, which is great. I mean, I feel
how
that
much
way.
that show resonated with people. Very female-driven show. You work really well with women, by the way, which is like something that we've taken for granted for years until we realized the patriarchy was such a heavy hand, like that. You've always been woke that way. You've always worked really well with women.
Thank you.
And being Erica is a great example of a female, really female-driven creative. I know your team was mixed, but still, it does. That show did resonate with people at a time when not a lot of women had shows on the air. So
absolutely,
yeah. I'm doing a time check. It says we've only got 11 minutes left, and I want to open up the questions. Sorry, I'm gonna go onto the page and see if we have. Okay. You know what? I have to look on my phone because it cuts off the questions. Does anyone have questions for James? Oh, there is a question I had as well about being pigeonholed. Like, you write mostly 1 hours. Could you ever go up for a half hour, or are you like now people would laugh if they heard James is applying for a half hour?
Yeah, you do. There is a comedy drama divide. I was fortunate enough to do one comedy called Sophie, and I loved the experience. It was a fantastic experience. The show, the first season, I thought was very good. Second season, I didn't work on. Second season was very rocky, as I understand it. I wasn't there, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I do like to write funny, as they say. And but I think my sweet spot is drama with a bit of comedy, dramedy, if you will. That's really my sweet spot. And I think because of the themes I want to write about. But yes, to answer your question, you do get pigeonholed. What's great about Canada is you can move around, though. There are writers who will bounce around. Let's say Jessie Gabe, who I know is a colleague of mine, you know her. She goes from 1 hour to half hour. I think features. Yeah. So that's the thing. And so, yes, you can, but she's a bit of a unicorn. Generally, you're going to be a 1 hour, you're going to be a half hour writer. And so I think in my case, I would love to go back and forth, but if I had to choose, it's like almost like 51-49 for me, because I do love comedy. And I really like to write funny, and people will say, sometimes it seems almost like it's a not a great fit, because I'll write a joke and it just gets cut, and I'm like, yeah, I know, I'm sorry. Flashpoint was a perfect example.
Flashpoint,
I mean, you could not have a joke. You could not have a joke in that. And by joke, I don't mean like, train across the road. I just mean a light moment, like because it was so intense. There wasn't a lot of, I tried to bring a little bit of levity to the scripts I worked on, and I think it came through. But yes, to answer the questions, you kind of pick one.
It says Damali has many questions. I only see one on my screen, so that's why I was going to also check my phone. But so one of her questions, and I don't know if you can answer this because I don't know if you've run a virtual room during the vid, but what's harder or better about running a writer's room virtually?
I've not run one. I'm afraid to say I have been in one.
And Shelley, you passed, right?
Yes. but I wasn't in a lot. So I feel like, you know what, I might not be the best person to answer that question. I think they work from what I've seen. I'm a big believer in chemistry, and I think you get chemistry in the room. But you know, if this means we can work, and if this means we can work safely, I'm all for it.
Yeah, right, absolutely. I'm going to keep looking for more questions. If I don't, or guys, keep typing them in because on my laptop it's not refreshing. Oh, sorry. Now, sorry about that. Sorry for the repeat. Okay, my other question is, I don't see any other questions coming up, so I'll keep asking you until the time. What about features? Have you, because you are such a movie buff and you stopped writing features, right?
It's true. It's true. I am a real movie buff. I am. So that's on the to-do list for sure. I would be, oh my God, I can't imagine. I would love to. It's daunting. But I'd love to give a try, and I would love to write a horror movie. I see a lot of horror movies, mainly because I take my nephew, but I've always loved horror. I've always loved it, and that seems to be a really good form for me, I think, for writing. I actually did write a horror show for Netflix. I was one of the writers on Slasher, which was great. I loved it. It was so much fun. I just loved it. I loved it.
Okay, I'm seeing if any more. Yeah, people, I can't believe people don't have questions. I have so many questions for you.
I'm taking it personally. I hope everybody knows I'm really hurt.
And it might be because my screen doesn't, but I keep refreshing. Okay, so, but there are people here. We've got like 11 of the 105 people in the group here. So,
well, thank you for coming, everybody.
Do you, what have you, okay, because you've got this perspective that not a lot of people in the Canadian industry have. How have you seen the industry change as a writer, as a television writer specifically? How has the industry changed in 25 years?
Oh, that's such a great question. Such a great question. I feel like there's been a lot of positive changes. I mean, I said before, and I'll say again quickly, the diminishment of not enough shows, and that is a huge, I think, a huge problem in my opinion, and I think there should be more. But what I think is great is that 25 years ago, the term showrunner didn't even exist. It wasn't even used, and it used to be in Canada anyway. You walk on set, a writer walks on set. You know what they did? Writer on set. Right. For real, that happened.
That is
the writer on set.
That is the worst. I feel like, okay, because just as someone who works on American sets all the time, hardly ever on it, this is the thing I noticed. There's there's much less respect for the writer in Canada, as there is in the States.
Not, and I should say before people get mad at me, some shows are very different. Being Erica, for example, tons of respect. Oh my God, that was just fantastic. They were so respectful. The crew, I mean, everyone else were terrible, but no, I'm kidding. But no, the crew is what we're talking about. Yeah, the crew is fantastic. I think the crews that work on US stuff, there's a very, very different culture in the US where writers, yes, are more respected. And I think Canada is moving in that direction because we do slowly move in the American direction. So you're seeing more and more of that. And you might say, wow, guys, why is that? And there is a reason, but it takes too long to explain. It's got to do with really just the way the funding was set up here, is that producers were just the way funding is set up is a very, very different model. So put producers absolutely in the catbird seat, absolutely driving the show. And then of course, directors, and then somewhere below that, the writer, and very, very different. But I think that American models taking root here, where there is a lot more interest in hearing from, and I think this is the best thing that's happened, and it's fantastic, is particularly wanting to hear authentic, original voices. Truly.
Oh, good.
And that's something that's happening here now too. Yeah, so I think that's a really, really big plus.
Okay,
It's not always perfect. There's some, doesn't always work that way, but there are some really good examples of young emerging writers who are getting a shot that would not have got a shot 25 years ago, and that's
that is
fantastic.
Good.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Damali's got two questions. So her first one is, I had one about staffing your writer's room. How do you choose the makeup per project or vice versa when you are staffed?
You mean how does the showrunner pick the room? Well, in concert with others, depending. In some cases, I've seen some shows where the showrunner really handpicked people. I've seen some cases where the showrunner was pretty much told with very little consultation. Yeah, so that does happen. Sometimes it happens where there's very little consultation, and anywhere in between. Ideally, you've got the amount of writers you want, and you probably come in with a few people you want to work with that and then, but I think every showrunner wants to work with some new people, and that are particularly going to shore up the places where they know they're lacking, or the way, or perhaps even someone will tell you, in a helpful way and say, you know what, James, I think, now I'm not lacking in any area. So this is not a conversation I've ever had. But no, I'm joking. But yeah, you'll certainly, you want to have the voices. So certainly, diversity is important, and I'm a big believer, and I always have been a big believer, especially coming from DeGrassi, which was, we really were trying to go for a kind of social realism. To an extent, obviously, it was still a ridiculous show with crazy things happening, but we really, for us, issues of diversity, queer issues were really, 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 really important. So it's really, really, really important to us that we have a diverse room and queer writers writing queer episodes. It's funny though, come to think of it, one of my favorite episodes was an episode I was writing about one of the young gay characters, Marco, and Aaron wanted me to write it. It was his first date. And I said, Aaron, as you know, I'm not gay, and I don't know a lot about having a first date with a guy. And he said, that's why I want you to write it.
Oh,
because it was a very smart move, right? Because he says, I want someone who's an idiot, no disrespect to me, but who just doesn't know, and is clueless. And it was a comic episode. So of course that can happen as well. But I think it's super, super important. I'm so sorry. This is the longest answer ever. It's very, very important to make sure that your room represents the world. I think that's super, super important. So that's something you take into consideration. And I think you want to have a mix of experienced to inexperienced. And then you can get into, if you can think about a band and think about almost like the instruments you would want in a band. And I'm being very artsy fartsy, but you might want someone, I always want someone who's sort of a throw stuff out like a machine gun, someone who's just going to keep throwing stuff out, because in the room it can get stagnant. So someone in there who's just going to throw something, just like, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? But won't get stuck on it, because that's the problem, is when you get stuck on it. Someone who's, there's different kinds of people in the room. There's the person who's throwing stuff out. There's often the analytical one.
The quiet one. It's always the quiet one.
thinking. And then there's the 2 or 3 people gossiping. And of course, everybody's on Twitter. But there's different roles. There's the clown, there's a dynamic that will happen in a room. And I think showrunners, especially ones who've been around, will look to create, not only get the right writers, but to create a dynamic in the same way that you would on a cast. And they say casting in the room. They say casting in the room, much like casting. Yeah. And our
rooms are small in Canada, right? Like, what's the biggest room you've ever run or been in?
The biggest room I've been in was Flashpoint. We had a lot of writers. Just one year we had we had big order, and so it was about 10 or 12. And that's a lot. I mean, I guess US shows are often like that, but 10 or 12 is a lot. And that was an active, ongoing, Frankie Drake, which I ran a couple years ago. We had, I believe, 6 writers, including myself.
That doesn't feel like enough. Is that really enough?
No, no, it's definitely not enough. And you and I have talked about it a million times, because the problem really gets into is do you have a body on set? And I know I don't want to start our old feud, because we always bicker about it like like an old married couple. Because now in comedy, I think you really have to have someone on set. You have to. You have to, absolutely. Yeah. And that's been my experience the one time I did comedy. But in drama, you might not be able to, because it just means that the heavy lifting, if the scripts suck, you can have someone on set, but if the script's garbage, what are they going to do? They can't fix the plot. You know what I mean?
I know, but at least they can guide the director. Sometimes the director doesn't know in 5 episodes these two characters are going to get together. Only the writers know that.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And that's why you really should have someone on set. And some shows do that, and I think it's great. A number of shows do that. Another Life has an on-set writer who's just there all the time. And a number of productions I've worked on will do something where they have a kind of a supervising producer. That's not the title, but a producer who's not a writer, but who's close with the team and can answer questions. Ideally, you'd really want the writer of the episode on set. I unfortunately in Canada, we often, that's a very expensive. I mean, you're giving someone up for like, that you probably need it in the room. You need that people in the room, because so episode 4 is great because the writer was there, but let's be honest too, the difference of what we're talking about, it's not from here to here, it's from here to here, right? On a drama, if the director is really that, they might be a nuance or something that they're missing. Don't get me wrong, it's great. But the difference of having a great writer in a room and not having a great writer in a room, that's the fucking Zeppelin that's going down in flames. I'm telling you. So you keep the Zeppelin in the air, and if they miss a nuance, hopefully they don't. But that's also why you have a tone meeting. And that's why the showrunner, works with the directors they know, and you have a tone meeting and you go through line by line. And you say, this is the nuance. And 4 episodes later, they're going to break up. So know that, get that. So I've found it's worked. It's honestly worked okay. I think comedy is completely different, as you know, bigger expert than me, because there's always a funnier joke. And you want someone constantly looking for the funnier thing. In drama, is there really a better line? I mean,
yes, James, there is. I've seen it. Okay, not that Suits was heavy drama, but I've seen writers change. It certainly wasn't a comedy. Like there were times when it was.
I know what you mean. Yeah. I get like if you can do it, of course, it's great. And I was on set on Being Erica, and I loved it. I didn't change that much, but I think it's also when you're dealing with a writer of my caliber that you can't really get any better than this. You know what I mean? So I think that's part of it.
Oh my God, we've gone 5 minutes over. Do you have like another 5 minutes? I'm so sorry. If not, we can just.
I'm good. I'm good. Yes.
Okay. I know you've got kids and you've got the whole shebang.
No, they're all out of the house. So.
Oh, really? You kicked them out for this?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, I did.
I see that Rob has a question. Okay, so Rob Watts, comedy writer, is shorter form writing as opposed to a full script still a good way to write and market oneself? Do you have any suggestions? Spec episode, short script. Okay, so Rob is an improviser. Just know that in context.
Right. But can I get more clarification on what I just want to be sure I know.
So Rob, are you talking about using your sketch writing as samples, or are you talking about making a short as like really ideally you want to have, if you want to write in a 1-hour show, you got to have a 1-hour sample, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got to have a finished thing. So, and I think Rob's probably asking more about comedy rooms, and I mean, you could speak to it. I'm thinking of I did work on one comedy, and I do have colleagues that work on comedy. I think it all depends. And there are, as you know, there are stand-ups. There was a real trend in animation, for example, for a while. I've written a few animated scripts for stand-ups to come in and really just be doing being punch-up artists.
My favorite thing. My favorite thing is punch-up.
For sure, right? Yeah. So in that case, do you need a whole script? No. But I would put it this way. It's difficult to crack a rotation anywhere. And there's a lot of people clamoring to get in. So if you don't have something that someone else has,
Yes, exactly. Okay. Yeah. And here,
so that's really the answer.
yeah. Okay, great. So we did answer his question. And Damali asked, you recently did Hardy Boys. Would you do more tween and teen?
Absolutely. I'd love to. I am a little long in the tooth. I mean, it was great when I was doing DeGrassi because I was much, when you're 30, early 20s, you're actually pretty close. Yeah, I remembered high school really well. And I was able to dial in really, really well. I think maybe a little too well. So now, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't love working with writers who were over 40 on DeGrassi. And I'm sure they're not watching. The ones, if any of you are watching, I don't mean you. No, I'm of course some are wonderful, but what I'm getting at is that what annoyed me about I'm a parent and I got two teenage boys, young teenage boys, and what I would watch myself like a hawk. I would love to go back and do youth. I love it. I still love it. And do I know I'm not on social media, so that makes me pretty behind the times. But I'll tell you something, when I used to about DeGrassi, and I'm so sorry, I'm jumping all over the place. The answer is yes, I would love to go back. I would watch myself like a hawk because I find that parents sometimes, in my experience when I was doing DeGrassi, and I'd get older writers who are parents, they'd be very protective of the characters and they wouldn't want the characters to do anything wrong. And it was a real problem because it was too scary for them. It was just too scary. So I would have to really, really watch myself to make sure that doesn't happen. So that's the one downside. I would love to, but what I would love to do if I got the opportunity to run a show for youth is to find to work with a whole great crew of new young writers and groom them and not groom is a bad word, coach them.
That's great.
I would love that because what I think made DeGrassi was that myself and Aaron Martin, the showrunner, and Shelley Scarrow, who's my partner, and we met on the show. We were writing very personally, and we were able to write stories from my life. So Drake, for example, I'm amazed Drake hasn't come up so far. I didn't know him as Drake. But Jimmy and Spinner were my characters, and that was me and my friend. I mean, I really wrote. Some of the storylines that happened, the stabbing was based on something that happened to me in my school. So and Shelley was able to write very personally. Aaron was able to write very personally, and that's really what that show needs. But it's hard to do, and it takes a lot of bravery, and it takes I think, encouragement. So that's something I would really want to encourage. I would love to have the opportunity to work with young writers and and encourage them in that direction.
Oh my God, that's great. I think that's a great way to end this interview.
Great.
And oh my God, thank you so much for your time, James. I hope you have 25 more years, and I hope one day that we get to work together.
Oh my God.
I don't know how, but either way, we'll have stories for each other from our respective worlds. And I'm so excited for your new show. So you don't know yet if it's a go, right?
No, I don't know yet. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I've got all my fingers and toes crossed.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Okay, sorry, I'm a bit of a klutz with tech, but I'm going to end the interview. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.